Well, good afternoon to what's going on with Lady D today. And today we have a special guest in the house who is no Cleveland's own, because he just chokes me up. I've been reading his book, so please bear with me. Jamel Davis, welcome to my show. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well today. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Jamel, I've been knowing you for quite some time now.
Yes.
And it has just been a real pleasure to see how you have grown. I mean, you have really brought in your writing skills. You've got several books out here.
Yes.
And I just want you to tell our audience, if they're not familiar, who are you?
Cleveland author Jamel Davis. I'm an internationally recognized speaker, writer, author, poet, book publisher, videographer, businessman, family man, just a lover of life. So I like to consider myself as a Renaissance man wearing many different hats. So you pick and choose which hat you want me to wear today, okay?
Okay. Well, let me just start with my selection.
Yes.
I want you to, since you are a writer, let's go, before we get into that, let's talk about when did you start getting into writing? What motivated you to become a poet, and did poetry take you to writing?
Okay, so the first avenue was poetry. So when I attended Kent State University as a junior and as a sophomore and junior, I used to go to the Rathskeller, and they used to have poetry slams and open mics and whatever.
Right.
At this time, I didn't know nothing about poetry.
Right.
And I told myself, I want to do that. I want to be able to go up here and recite a poem and for the audience and be able to, sell out crowds and whatnot. And so after attending the Rathskeller, I would go back to my dorm and I would practice writing poems. And then I would go to open mic and I would read the poems. But to me, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough because I was reading from a device or a piece of paper,
Okay.
and these people are doing spoken word. And so from therein, I continued to write poems, and I never would recite them, just would store them. And then how I got into the book world, back in 2014, I was a part of the Cleveland Renaissance movement with Councilman Bashir Jones at the time.
Okay.
And we fought for change, for injustice, and for people of color. And at this time, my son, Jair, he was 3 years old at the time. And being a part of a community activist group, I was exposed to things that I never was able to be exposed to in the community, like the in-depth things of crime and violence and all those different things. So, and I asked myself one important question. I said, if I died today, who would live to tell my story, and would they tell it correctly? And at that moment, I knew can't nobody tell my story better than me. So I decided to pick up my pen and the paper and start from the beginning, from the day I was born, to start writing. And then once I got done, I started sharing my books with the inmates at the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, in which I worked full time as well.
Okay.
And they pretty much encouraged me to go ahead to produce my first book, How Success Became My Focus. And then also, I was still doing spoken word during that time too. And I had some pieces that I was creating around social injustice. And one of my pieces that I wrote was titled "I Don't Deserve to Be Shot Down." And when I came up with "I Don't Deserve to Be Shot Down," I really wanted to tell the story of many people in impoverished communities, what we go through, what we experience, and why we don't deserve to be casted out because you don't know our story. And so I wrote this poem with the help of inmates that was housed in there. So I would go cell to cell, talk to guys, getting their story, and then I created "I Don't Deserve to Be Shot Down." And then those same inmates encouraged me to go to open mic events and whatnot out in the community.
Right.
And once I wrote it, I performed it for them. I went out to the community. After doing my first open mic night, I started getting paid to do "I Don't Deserve to Be Shot Down" from at open mic nights, poetry slams, schools, universities, organizations, to lunches, banquets, and whatnot, and it just went from there.
So you just became international.
I just became international. I actually became international with my second book, which is Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself. And how I got that was after releasing How Success Became My Focus.
Right.
I was published under a New York City publisher. And at this time, this publisher was stealing all my royalties and my rights and everything. And I knew I wanted to continue to write, but I didn't want to continue to go through that same publishing route.
Okay.
So I did my homework and my research on how to create my own publishing house.
Awesome.
And so when I was writing Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself, I was doing my research on how to establish my own publishing house. And then I published Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself under Elevated Ways Publishing Corporation, which is my publishing house.
Okay.
And then that allowed me to get into the international market because that New York City publisher was not doing anything for that. They took my money and they just like, all right, kick rocks. So I knew I wanted to continue to write. I knew I had a story to tell. And I wanted to write completely naked under my first company, and I made it happen. And how I wrote not completely naked. I'm sorry. Let's go back. Cultivating Minds. I got so many books, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know.
Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself is the book I'm referring to. And I wrote that book because so many people saw me go from a boy in an impoverished, dominated community to being a mature, successful, and responsible adult. And I kept on getting the same question. How did you do it? How did you do it? How did you do it?
Right.
And I didn't want to keep repeating myself over and over again. So I decided to write my process of how I was able to become the man that I am for those people. Okay. So Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself is birthed with the intentions of helping men and women to discover their purpose and to take ownership of their lives without using society standards. So that was Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself. And then I ended up writing in between these sheets right after, and then now we at Completely Naked, and then we getting ready for Sex 16 that comes out Valentine's Day.
Wow. Yeah. This is just really awesome. So the books that you have, I went to check. They are still available, so our audience can still check those books out. Yes. Can you tell them how and where if they want to get the books?
You can visit my website, authorjamildavis.com, or you can visit any website of your favorite book retailer. Type in Jamil Davis, and my books will come up. Or to make it simple, just Google me. Google me, Cleveland Author Jamil Davis, and my Google profile, and everything else regarding my books will pop up.
Excellent, excellent. So the age that you started writing was?
Oh, let's see. As far as authoring, or just writing in general?
In general.
So I started writing in high school. I had been about 15, 16 years old at the time. And however, I never knew that I was a good writer until my teachers told me that I was a good writer. And so when you think about being in academia, you writing just to pass, doing your writing assignments just so you can pass the course.
Right.
And I remember getting writing awards and certificates and still didn't have confidence in my writing.
Okay.
And so that's when I would start. I would have writing prompts, I would write it, and I would always get A's on it. But it wasn't until I got into college when I was about 18, 19, when I had my first real English professor. And every research paper that I completed, it was an A. It was an A. It was an A. And what I liked about my English professors in college was they taught me how to use transitional words, how to stretch my voice. So I never knew how to write to stretch my words. Once I got introduced to transitional words and different styles of writing, it became a piece of cake, especially when I learned how to do essays, like 131s or whatever,
right.
How to do an opening, introduction, and paragraphs. And then that became cool. Now, it wasn't until after I graduated college when I was able to write for myself, because you in college is trying to, get the passing grades so you can get your credits and get your degree.
Okay.
And then once I graduated college, then I started writing for myself. So I started about in high school when I first started actually writing MDiv essays.
That's awesome as well.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you some questions here. I was reading your book, Completely Naked. How did you come up with the name? Because I love this book.
Completely Naked. All right, cool. So, Completely Naked started out with just a poem first. In chapter one, in the book, you will hear you will read this segment, or if you're on Audible, you will hear this segment talking about I wish I never did this. I wish this never happened, and that was regarding sex. So I wrote a poem about the complications and the dangers and the bad effects of sex or whatever. And so it was called I Wish I Was a Virgin. That's what I titled the poem when I got done.
Okay.
And I titled it because so many things, so many people are affected by childhood abuse, molestation, sexually transmitted disease, infidelity, all these different things.
Right.
And I was in the hot seat at this time. I was in the hot seat for my infidelity issues and whatnot. And we as men or even people just always just got the finger. You cheated on me. You did this, whatever.
Right.
But nobody took the time out to learn where cheating come from, how it affects us, and the dangers of sex. So I decided to just sit down and write this poem, the title "I Wish I Was a Virgin," which is very, very heavy because I talk about my early childhood molestation from men, from women, and I talk about how it affected me. And so instead of learning to recite this piece, at this time I got out of the poetry market of memorizing and reciting.
Okay.
So I said, you know what? I'm not going to recite this piece. I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to title it Completely Naked. I'm going to take all my clothes off, and I'm going to let people into who Jamil Davis really is. And I started with the first chapter of I Cheated because that I was in the hot seat at the time from infidelity. And then I put that poem in there in the first chapter as well so people could understand what led me to infidelity.
Let me ask you a question because this is so important because, as a teenager, a young adolescent, we grow up, boy like girl, girl like boy.
Yes.
But then, with these, when we start to come into our puberty, now you get these feelings and emotions and things going on. Why is it that, where does the cheating begin? Why is there cheating? What causes cheating?
That's a great question. Thank you for even asking me. So we have media influence and we have influence within our homes. And if we listen to the music of hip hop and R&B artists,
Right.
it subconsciously programs the mind to cheat. Also, from guys, so we could take for women, we take TLC, and we got Escape, My Little Secret. Let's keep it on the down low. All these different things. Think about what it's doing to the mind, and then you got to think about the environment in which we are living in. So we have hip hop and R&B music that's associated with the environment that we are living in. And so it's a propaganda, it's a social engineering that's made to divide and conquer. And so if we are listening to music that's telling us to step out on our person, and then we are surrounded with people in our environment that's committing the same acts, whether we on TV or whatever, then we're going to want it. So my motto is how marketing works. So we think about marketing. The more people hear it, the more they see it, the more they want it for themselves, Right. And so we have our parents engaging in that behavior, and we are kids, so we watch it. And we got our parents listening to the destructive music, watching these poor television shows that's emulating behavior, other destructive lyrics, and of the people that's on these television networks. And we don't know what it's doing to us. We just think it's entertainment. But it's reprogramming our subconscious mind to do things that we wouldn't do. And so when we, as young men, it's the guy code. It's the guy code to have as many girls as you want.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
It's to talk with the basketball team, football team, the locker room, or whatnot. And our parents even prepares us to cheat anyways. I remember in my book, I talk about it, and I remember as a kid,
Okay.
all the women in my family asking me how many girlfriends I got at school. That's programming. I remember all the uncles and same thing. How many girlfriends you got? He's going to be a heartbreaker. He's going to have all the girls when he get over. You know what I'm saying? And then they playing into this trap of programming our youth to do this behavior. And then we have young girls who are brought up to preserve themselves from one guy, learn how to cook, learn how to clean, learn how to take care of yourself. Don't get dirty, whatever.
Right.
You need to do this for when your husband come. However, young boys are taught to enhance their gifts and talents in order to get money, in order to attract as many women as they can get. And that's when you have conflict. So when you get of age to start having sex, you have one woman who's been preparing herself for one man, and you have one man who's been trained to have as many women as he can, and that's going to cause conflict. You got the music, you got the media, you got movie, you got your environment behind this, and you got society. And it's just one big nutshell that's causing this big uproar of conflict based off sex.
And that is awful because all of this music, movies, like you said, is entertainment. It sells, it get ratings, but it's also killing us as a race of people. Because 9 times out of 10, what you're looking at, you don't have, if your parents or people in your household are looking at this and this is what you hear, even if you're a kid, you have to be aware and of how us as adults carry on and our kids are around.
Absolutely. And in my book, I hold accountable, not blame, my parents. I blame and hold accountable the absence of my father for not teaching me how to have self-discipline. I blame the lack of knowledge of my mom for not showing me what love looked like from another woman. But then I got even deeper and completely naked because I talk about how she was just a kid when she had me. She was 13 and she was a virgin. So, however, I always resented her until I got to the age of understanding what her childhood and her upbringing was like, you know. And so a lot of times, you know, the lack of a parent, one or both, can resort to us engaging in behaviors that we shouldn't engage in, you know. So if we have parents who are not emotionally available, who don't provide us the love and affection that we need, then we're going to search high and low through all the wrong places looking for something that never going to exist because we can't identify it. Our parents are our early teachers of love and everything. And so if our parents aren't loving us the way that we need to be loved, then we're going to search, again, high and low and through all the wrong places for something that's never going to present itself because we can't identify it with it.
I want you to tell me, what is love?
Love, that's a great question. So I believe it's a spiritual connection between one or more persons for everlasting happiness and joy. It's a spiritual bond. And that, to me, that's what love is. It's happiness. It feels good. It's positive energy. That's love. A lot of people say, you know, love hurts. Nah, love don't hurt. Love feels good.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't agree
love
with
feels
that
good.
either. Okay,
so when we think about things that makes us happy, that makes us feel good inside, that is love. From an intimate standpoint, it's a connection that 2 or more people share. It's a good feeling. That's my definition of love.
Okay, and I like that definition of love because I won't say back in the day, but throughout the past, love, some kind of way, pain got caught up into love. And then from that pain it grew to be abusive. And women and men, because men get abused too.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not just the woman. They hang on to something because they know nothing else, or they're afraid to step out of their comfort zone.
Yes.
So what is it that we can do as a race to make some changes? Because my my point is that the music industry, they let us sing and say whatever.
Yes.
There's no boundaries anymore.
Nope.
So, what can we do to make a change?
Okay, great question. Again, the first thing we could do is therapy. That's the first thing we have to do. You know, therapy allows you to take a deeper look into yourself,
Okay.
your traumas, your triggers, how your behaviors affect other people, and whatnot. The next thing we can do is we can change the channel. We can change the radio station.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I don't listen to 107.9 or none of them hip hop shows in there because after writing Completely Naked and realizing what that type of music and those environments did to me, I can't go back there. And I have a son, so we don't listen to none of that. We change the station and we watch things that are more dignifying of our respect. And that's what we have to do. Just because it sound good or it feel good, it may not be right for us. You know,
Right.
so if everybody's going right, we got to go left. Everybody going left, we got to go right. You know,
Right.
if everybody's going to the club and getting drunk and doing all those crazy things, we have to do the other way. You know, so we can't follow the crowd. We really got to sit down and tap within ourselves to see what it is that we truly want out of life. And a lot of times we are hindering our growth and our progression because we are subscribing to things that we know that is not beneficial to our growth. You know, so you may ask yourself, why my breakthrough hasn't come? My breakthrough hasn't come because I'm subscribed to things that is poison to me. You know, I'm eating bad food. I'm watching, you know, bad television shows, listening to
Yeah.
bad music, hanging around bad company. The moment you start eliminating these things from your environment will be the moment that your breakthroughs start to come through. So if you continue to subscribe to a poisonous thing or negative energy, your light is not going to shine bright enough. So the first thing I would always recommend people to do is to check into therapy, you know, and it doesn't mean it's a one-on-one counselor. I can read a book on self-development. That's therapy. I can go walk into the metro parks barefooted. That's therapy. I can go turn to a YouTube channel and listen to a professional that's helping me overcome certain traumas in my life. That's therapy. Or I can just do fun and exciting things that's positive. That's therapy. But also we have to be open-minded to the fact that Completely Naked and books like it is a tool to help you see yourself for who you truly are and the world around you.
That is, I like that because I think we all need to take a moment and evaluate oneself.
Yes.
That evaluation is something that should really take place on a 30, 60, 90
Oh, absolutely.
day because we're constantly changing and things are constantly going on in our life and we're going through different experiences.
Yeah.
So the self-help and would be great, will have a great impact. Learning how to be with oneself, being alone is number one.
Yes.
I really feel
Yes.
people sometimes don't even know what it is to be with themselves.
You know what? That's a great point that you make. And I will say that because isolation is the greatest form of therapy. And it's sad to say that, you know, a lot of people are incarcerated. And I wish people can be isolated outside of incarceration. Because a lot of, when you are isolated, you are forced to be with your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. You know, and it can be scary at times because you might not know how to channel those thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But however, you are forced to sit with it, think it through, and perform an action. And as a correctional officer, I've been there about 9 years now as a correctional officer. And I love that job. You know, I love that guys are isolated, not to the point of being incarcerated, but isolated because they got the opportunity to work on themselves. Work on themselves, and then, because they're reading self-help books, and then they got therapy, they got counselors, they got mental health providers, and to see how they was when they walked in to leaving out of the gate, oh, it's beautiful. And so that's what I have done on my journey.
Okay.
But not inside of those walls.
Right.
But being one with myself. You know, turning off the TV, turning off the radio, and doing a reevaluation period. Because I talk about it in Completely Naked. I talk about it in Cultivating Minds to Own Thyself. What that reevaluation period look like. That means I'm doing everything that I need to do for me. Because when you start living life for other folks, you're no longer living for yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I'm alone in solitude, I am with my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and I can process that, you know? And that's the best form of therapy. Strip yourself completely naked. Okay?
Yes.
And this is literal.
Yes,
literal.
yes.
Take your clothes off, be in a room by yourself, be in a fetal position, cry if you need to, because that's cleansing your wounds and allowing love to come back in. You have to release, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of time. I think that's why we are frustrated, why we are angry, aren't able to cope, because we are walking around with so much bottled up energy and we have no outlet. We are afraid to cry. We are afraid to show emotion. We are afraid to love on one another. And when you walk around with all this in, you are a ticking bomb, waiting to explode. So I do recommend and encourage people to have solitude with themselves, be naked with themselves, take off the makeup, take off the fine jewelry, and just be one with yourself and just let it out. And I find myself, now that I'm completely naked, you know, I'm okay with crying in public. I'm okay with wearing my heart on my sleeve. I'm okay with showing emotion. But before completely naked, I was afraid. I was afraid to show weakness because society told me as a black man or as a man in general that I can't cry. I can't show no sign of weakness because I'm going to be less of a man. But what I found out was keeping all that in made me less of a man.
Yeah.
It made me less of a man. Wearing it on my shoulders, on my sleeves, made me more of a man. And what I like about Completely Naked too is that it made women who have read it look further into the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of a black man. It have helped women to nurture the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of a black man in order to get the outcome they want out of a black man. I have so many women who have hunt me down and say, you know what, thank you for writing Completely Naked. You saved my marriage. You saved my family because I never knew men went through these things. Thank you for being vulnerable because now I know how to reach my son, my nephews, my uncles, my brothers, and all different men.
Right.
And that's what I like about Completely Naked.
And that's really good because when we are growing up as kids, you know, it's okay for the girls to cry
Yes.
and be pampered. But as a little boy cry, you know, he needs to be told to shut up and,
Yes.
you know, be talked to it. And he's going to be a punk,
Yes.
you know. Or, you know, I used to I was a baby photographer. And when I would go to the hospitals and take newborn baby pictures, it was amazing how the young parent, the baby be crying, and versus seeing what the baby actually is crying about or need, the first thing come out of their mouth is, oh, he's gonna have a bad temper, you know. And like this was something to be praised or, you know, honored. And this baby is a baby. He's innocent. He doesn't know anything about a temper.
No, not at all.
You know, so it's the things that we put into our kids without even knowing. It's just like the music we listen to. All that stuff that you're singing, you're actually taking it in.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's becoming your experience.
And that's a great point that you made on, you know, the behaviors that we are imposing on the next generation. So when we think about childhood and how boys and girls are raised differently, how young girls can cry but the men can't. And a lot of times, I talk about it in the book as well, a lot of mothers destroy their sons before the streets do. And it's because of their lack of nurturing, that lack of nursing, that lack of come here, baby, you can cry, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
There are so many women who are destroying their sons by saying, shut the F up, go to your room, quit crying like a girl. You are part of the reason why a lot of these guys grow up to resort to violence. You have to be nurturing, not just during the time when your baby come out of the womb, forever.
Yes.
Forever. Even when you get a husband, or you got to be nurturing because it's so much pressure on us as men.
Yeah.
We don't have an outlet. We don't have many resources. It's already a stigma in our community that we can't go to therapy, And so there's a lot of support groups for our sisters, for the abuse that they go through as well,
Right.
From what their dads did them. So it works both ways, works on both ways.
Yes.
And just like dads, moms aren't the only ones who can be nurturing.
Excellent.
You have to be nurturing as well. You have to love in your kid. You have to let them know that it's okay to cry. And same thing for your daughters, And, we have to show up in our kids' lives because if we don't, then their upbringing and their adulthood can hit turmoil or a turn for the worse because of your inability to show up, And so I've learned through the absence of my father how to become a better father for not just my son, but for every child I encounter. And I believe, I'm everybody's dad, because I don't just show one side. I show everything,
Excellent. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell our audience, please go get this book today.
Yes.
And it's called Completely Naked, and you're in for a delight. This is a real treat. I want to thank you, Jamal, for being on my show.
Thank you.
And I wish you so much success. And whatever you do, just keep writing.
Yes.
Keep motivating and make a change.
Sure will.
Okay? Each day we can make changes. Thank you for tuning in with Lady D today. What's going on?